Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. We've been hosting on Airbnb for just over 2 years, and I'm proud to say I've maintained superhost status the whole time, which I'll get to later. But I was asked a few times to share some of my experience as a host and to answer some questions. So I did put out a call for questions and I'm going to be answering them in this video. I will timestamp all of the questions down below so you can just skip to the relevant ones. They are in no particular order and I'm probably going to ramble, so I will apologize ahead of time for how long this video is. If you don't know what Airbnb is, it is a way for anybody to become an instant hotel. You can rent out a sofa in your living room, or you can rent out an entire house. It can even be the house you live in if you just go and live somewhere else while your guests are staying there. You can have a dedicated space, you can have a room in your home. It is up to you how much or how little you offer to your guests. Some guests on Airbnb enjoy Airbnb because they can be immersed in a family, they can have meals with the family as they're traveling, they can meet different people, and some people just want to be on their own and to travel by themselves and not really interact with the family. And it's the same for hosting. As a host, you may want to meet your guests and meet your travelers and spend time with them, or you may want to just provide the space and not have to really interact with them at all. We interact with our guests, I'd say medium to low level. So we do have a lockbox. If we're not around, they can just let themselves in. We generally have the place ready and the door unlocked so they can just walk in. If we happen to see them when they arrive, we'll come outside often and greet them and say hello and show them where the place is. But I'd say as often as not, they just find the place. I do send them instructions before they come, obviously, and let themselves in and make themselves at home. The guests we had last night arrived late at night. They let themselves in, they stayed the night, and they left this morning, and she just flicked me a text saying they enjoyed their stay, and I didn't even meet them at all. So I'm going to jump into the questions before I just start rambling on about what it's like to host. The first question is, how did you first decide to open an Airbnb? Tell us more about the business. So we bought this house with the intention of just buying a house for our family, and as part of the house there was kind of a bonus room as half of the garage. If you're interested in seeing this space, by the way, I do have a tour video. I'm actually filming in the guest house at the moment. I do have a tour showing you around, and I also have a separate video showing you the kitchen bathroom area. So I will link both of those down below. So we just had this bonus room and we didn't really have many plans for what to do with it. And then when we actually came to move, my brother-in-law was staying with us. So we thought we'll just clean up the room and kind of kit it out as a guest bedroom. And then it kind of evolved, well, they would need a bathroom, and then we bought the little extension which had the bathroom in, and there was enough space to put a kitchen in, and it just kind of evolved. But the original intention was to create the space that our friends and family, mainly family, can stay in when they come and visit us. Because we live in New Zealand, Grant's family and most of my family live in South Africa, my sister lives in America, my mother lives in Ireland, but like Grant's parents will come and visit for 2 months at a time, or my dad will come over for 6 weeks, and we wanted to have a comfortable place for our guests to stay because we don't have a big house and we don't have a spare room in the house. So that's kind of how it started, and then we kind of created the space. It just seemed logical to offer it on Airbnb. Now we live in a tiny village in South Taranaki, and I honestly genuinely thought we would get maybe one booking every couple of months. But I just thought, you know, the space is there, and if we get a booking, great, and if we don't, then well, we'll still be using the space anyway. And we've been doing this for just over 2 years now, and we are around about 60% booked every month. It has been amazing. It has been such a good source of income and a kind of semi-passive side business. So like I said at the beginning of this video, anybody can offer any space on Airbnb. You just want to show your guests what is available. I think there are requirements now that you do have to offer bedding, pillows and towels. There are some basics that you need to offer, and away you go. You can be an Airbnb host. You don't have to have a dedicated space like we do. You don't even have to have a guest room. The next question is, what would be some tips you would suggest with the wisdom of hindsight for other Kiwis thinking of going down that path? I really struggled to come up with an answer for this because you just kind of learn as you go, and nothing major happened that I thought I wish I'd known this before I started. What I would say is have a look at your schedule, have a look at your lifestyle, and just fit it in around you. don't let this become a source of stress for you if you decide to do some Airbnb hosting. So if you decide you just don't want guests around during the school holidays, block off the school holidays on your calendar. Or if you don't want people around on the weekends, or if you only want to rent out during the weekends, you are in control. You're also in control of your settings in terms of whether or not you have instant book. Instant book means that your guests can find your listing and check availability and book straight away. Not everyone has instant book turned on. We do, because we always have the place ready because I work from home. But if you don't and you need space between your guests, or you want to be a bit more choosy about who actually is allowed to book your property, you can set it so that they have to request a booking from you, and you can decline that if you want to. You can also set how long you want as a turnaround between guests. We have same day bookings, so our guests check in at 2 p.m. or anytime after 2 p.m. They check out by 10 a.m. So I know that I've got between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. to get the place clean and the linens turned around and ready for the next guest. So many people book day of. I cannot believe how many people travel like that, because I just can't. If I'm planning a trip, I want to know ahead of time that my accommodation is sorted and I know where I'm going to be. But so many people book same day. And that works for me. We've got instant book. I will get an email maybe 7 o'clock at night. Somebody's coming that night to stay, and I know that the place is ready. But if you are not in a position to be able to do that, if you're working outside of the home or whatever, you can choose how many days turn around between guests. You can say 1 or 2 days between guests, and it will automatically kind of set it that way for you. So I guess with hindsight, just look at what will work for you, what you can manage, what will work for your family, and just set your settings accordingly. Some of that you may only learn with experience, but you can change it at any point along the way. Another tip would be to have enough spare linens, pillows, duvets, etc. in case you need to take longer to clean them. For example, if you need to treat a stain, you need to have fresh bedding and linens to use in the meantime. Next question is specific and practical real-life step-by-step guidance around setting up a rental space within the home or in a small separate sleep-out area, as well as the actual mechanics and logistics of running and managing it. Turnaround time, pre-approval or not, self-check-in or greeted guests, do you provide meals or not? So I've answered some of this, but I'll start with setting up a space. Your space can be anything from a sofa in your living room or an air mattress on the floor to an entire dedicated space like we have. You can even rent your actual home out on Airbnb if you go and stay somewhere else. I've seen people on Airbnb who will go and sleep in their garage while people live in their house, or whatever the situation is. Whatever space you have for someone to lay their head, you can offer that on Airbnb. So the things I would suggest is give them some privacy. So yes, I mentioned a sofa in the living room. That's not great if your kids are going to be running in at 6 a.m. and jumping on this stranger sleeping on your couch. I would suggest giving them at least a door on the room that they're sleeping in. Access to a bathroom, obviously. It's up to you how much access you allow to your kitchen. You want to provide comfortable bedding, towels, and, you know, maybe a blanket for the bed. Just a space that they can be comfortable and feel safe. Any extras that you offer is completely up to you. We don't offer meals. We have had guests to dinner in our home, guests that we've connected with and wanted to get to know more. We've met some wonderful people through Airbnb, but at the same time, we often don't meet our guests, which I'll get to in a minute. So that's entirely up to you how much you offer. We do have a small carton of long life milk in the fridge when our guests arrive. There's tea, coffee, sugar, salt and pepper in the guest house. Any other food they bring for themselves. It's a self-catering space. So the mechanics, I kind of talked a little bit about instant book and how that all works. So the actual physical way that I run this place is I will get an email and a text on my phone and a message through the Airbnb app. I wanted to make sure all my bases were covered, and that will notify me that somebody has made a booking. So I'll go and open the email. I usually just manage it on my computer rather than on my phone. I prefer that if I'm at home, and I'll respond to their booking. When they book, it opens up a message between the two of you. They have to leave a message for me. So they'll say, my husband and I are traveling around New Zealand and we want to spend a couple nights at your place. So I will put those dates into our personal calendar so I know who's staying, when, and how many people are staying. So if it's 2 people, I know I don't need to get the sofa bed ready. And then I copy and paste a message that I already have written out, and send it to them. So I'll say, hi so-and-so, and the message is pretty much, thanks so much for booking, this is how you find us, this is my phone number, this is my husband's phone number in case you need it, directions to the house. I ask them if they do need the sofa bed, please let me know, because even though they're 2 guests, they may sometimes be 2 friends traveling together who don't necessarily want to share a bed. So I do always ask, please let me know if you need the sofa bed. I tell them where to park when they arrive. We actually allow our guests to use the garage, which is attached to the guest house, because when we have guests, we don't use it. Grant doesn't want to be waking them up early in the morning when he leaves for work and the door goes up. So we allow guests to use the garage. They can park in front of it or in it, and we just pretty much tell them what to expect and where to go, and the code for the lockbox if we're not here. And it's just kind of a general friendly welcoming email. Our guests usually let us know about what time they're going to arrive. I think Airbnb encourages guests to do that, but it kind of makes no difference to us because we offer self check-in. If we're around when our guests arrive, we'll often come outside and say hello and introduce ourselves and just tell them like we're in the house if you need anything. But if they're arriving late, or if I don't notice when they arrive, they just let themselves in, make themselves at home, and they leave when they need to. I have in the past had to come out at like noon and kick people out and say like, I need to get in here to clean. Checkout time was actually 10 a.m. and they were like, oh, we had no idea. But that doesn't happen often. So the guests come, they stay, they leave by 10 a.m. and I know after 10 a.m. I can come out here and clean. So it's entirely up to you how you want to run it. You might want to meet every single person who comes onto your property. You might want to offer them meals. You might want to have a longer turnaround time between guests. You set it up as you want to run it. Next question is, what are the essentials you would recommend having in a guest room and guest house when first setting up? I would recommend, like I said, having towels and bedding, more than 1 pillow per person if possible, because some people like to sleep with more pillows, or they might find one more comfortable than the other. So we have, as you can see, the queen bed behind us. I've got 2 pillows on each side, so there's 2 pillows per guest. And then when we have the sofa bed, I provide 2 more pillows and a duvet. And then we do have a quilt on the end of the bed, and we have an extra blanket in the locker. But this place does have a heater as well, and we have electric blankets. So I would just recommend making the bed comfortable, making the place warm, or providing something for your guests to make the place warm, like a space heater if you don't have a heat pump in the room, and basics like shampoo and body wash. So we provide the bedding, a table, chairs, plates, cutlery, glasses, mugs, basic cooking utensils, so like a frying pan, a pot with a steamer, kettle, toaster. We've got a hairdryer, a microwave, what else? Like I said, sugar, salt, pepper, tea, coffee, milk, just like a small milk to start them off. They can go into their own grocery shopping if they're staying longer and need more. We have a chopping board, we have, I think we've got a grater, can opener. So it depends on if your space is self-catering or not. In the bathroom I provide cotton rounds, washcloths, toilet paper, body wash, conditioner, shampoo, little floss picks, and cotton buds. Yes, most guests will be traveling with toiletries, but sometimes they forget things, or it's a hassle to get their things out. We have pump bottles of the basics in the shower, and it's just easier for them to use that most of the time. So you do need to be aware of that as an extra cost. Your consumables, whatever you're providing in terms of consumables, you want to check all of the time. We also have tissues, we have fly spray, things like that. Just make sure that they always stocked. You don't want your guests to go and use something and just find an empty bottle. It's not going to look good for you. So if you do provide things, just make sure they're constantly provided. But it's entirely up to you how much you do or don't provide. Just think of what you would like as a guest. The person who asked that question listed a few things like comfy bed. Yes, we provide that. Make sure your bed is comfortable. Clean sheets, yes. Duvet, pillows, extra blanket, lamp on bedside tables. We do have a lamp on bedside tables. We recently went and stayed in an Airbnb which did not have lamps on the bedside tables, and it was super annoying. She asked about TV. We have a smart TV so people can go on YouTube or Netflix or anything like that. And as I mentioned, in terms of heater, we have a heat pump in this space so they can use it as an air conditioner in summer or a heater in winter. Next question, what is your typical routine for changing over between guests? I mentioned that. So I'll come out, clean, and then I've got usually 2 or 3 loads of laundry every single time. So I go in and I straight away put on the first load of laundry, which is usually the sheets and towels, because I don't want wet towels just sitting in the hamper. So that's my routine. I come out, I clean, I go and I start my laundry. What would you do differently about setting up your guest room or guest house? I wouldn't do anything differently. It's been very successful. We've had 185 reviews left for us. They've all been positive. I've maintained superhost status ever since we launched. To become a superhost, you need to have at least 95% response to communication, and I have 100% response. If you send me a message, I'm going to reply to it. And you need to not ever cancel a booking. We've never canceled a booking. And what is the other? Oh, you need to have at least, I think, 4.5 stars as a rating, and we have 5-star ratings. So we've maintained superhost status ever since we launched. So I think how we've done is pretty good, and I don't think I'd do anything any differently. Next question is, what are the pros and cons of having a guest house or guest room according to your experience to date? Okay, so the pros are, I feel almost a passive income. Yes, I have to come out and clean in between guests, and sometimes that could be every single day of the week. If we have, you know, one guest a day staying for one night, I'll be out here cleaning and turning the room over every single day. But that usually takes me less than an hour. And when you look at your nightly rate that you're charging versus how much time it actually takes, it's a pretty good hourly wage. And if you have a guest staying a week or, you know, even a few days, you only have one clean. We've had a guest stay here over a month, and I've only had to come out and clean once because it was their responsibility to keep the place clean during that time. You can set minimum nights you require per booking. We only require one night, but you might want to set a minimum of 2 or more nights per booking to make it more worth your while, although it will limit how many bookings you get. So it's kind of a passive income because you're just living your life, like we're just carrying on with our normal daily life, and we're getting paid every single night that somebody's here. And when I say passive, I mean Airbnb does all of your marketing. People just find you. I don't actually have to do anything besides turn the room around between guests. I love that I can fit it in around my schedule. If we're going away and I'm not here to turn the place over in between guests, I'll just block it off on the calendar. Or if we don't want strangers around, like over Christmas time, or if we're having friends or family coming to stay and I need the space for that, I just block it off on the calendar. So I like that we can run it as a business, but it completely fits in around our needs. We've also met some really interesting people. I know that I did say that we don't interact with our guests a lot, but there have been guests that we have interacted with, and we've, like I said, had them to dinner and connected with some really interesting people, so that's been fun. And I also feel like we're meeting a need in the area. If we're 60% booked and we're just a tiny podunk town kind of in the middle of nowhere, there's obviously a need for accommodation, so it's been good to be able to fill that need as well. As far as cons, I don't always feel like cleaning. I certainly don't always feel like cleaning every single day, and it does create a lot of extra laundry, so those are things to think about. Occasionally you'll have inconsiderate people making a noise. They'll be sitting out on the deck socializing and being a bit noisy, maybe later than we would prefer. That really doesn't happen often. It's happened maybe once or twice. Or you'll have people leaving early in the morning and they make a lot of noise as they're loading up their car. But again, that's not frequently, and it's really not that big of a deal. Another con is if you come to rely on that income, it's actually quite hard to do away with it. For example, when my dad came to stay in February, he was here for about 6 weeks, I think, and we obviously lost all of our Airbnb income during that time because he was staying in here. It was amazing to have the space to offer him. It made the visit so comfortable for all of us, but we did do without the income. So if it's an extra income for you, make sure you can do without it, not only if you have guests or friends staying in that space, but also if something goes wrong. If you have a burst pipe or a flood or something goes wrong in the space and you need to close it for maintenance, make sure that you're not relying on that income. I was asked, what is a typical experience of having guests on your property? I think I've pretty much covered that already. We see them, we will speak to them sometimes, but very often people just come and go and we don't even see them. It's funny how some people will stay one night and the place will be so dirty. I don't mean they've trashed it, but there'll be so much hair everywhere, and there'll be marks on the duvet, and there'll be crumbs. Like, some people are just messier than others. Some people will come and stay for a week and I come in here and it's like I've just cleaned it. So that can vary from guest to guest how you're going to find the place. You set up your house rules. So if your house rules are no noise outside after 7 p.m. or whatever you want, your guests have to follow those rules, because while you get rated as a host, they also get rated as a guest, and their reputation follows them around, and other hosts are going to be looking at their feedback when they do or don't accept their booking. Like I said, we just have instant book, and you can set who is allowed to instant book, but we have it pretty much open because some people don't have a rating yet. So if they're a first-time guest, they don't have a reputation, yes, we're taking a chance on them. But I feel like the system on Airbnb protects you as a host even more than it protects you as a guest, because it is your personal space that you're allowing people into. So you do rate your guests whether or not they follow your rules that you've set, but you can also set whichever rules you have. And we haven't had guests break rules. I have had to set rules, which maybe that's something I should have mentioned in the hindsight. I once came in here and the whole place stank of curry. It was so heavy in the air. I cleaned, I aired the place, and I actually had to block off the next day or two because it still stank of curry and we couldn't get the scent out. It was in the curtains, and I had to set a new house rule as part of our settings that guests were not allowed to cook curry or fish or strongly scented food because of that, because I don't want to have to close off the place and have the trouble of trying to get that scent out of our upholstery and curtains and things. So that's something I learned along the way, but you can just set your house rules however you want. So each time you have a booking complete, a few hours after your checkout time, you'll get a reminder from Airbnb to leave feedback for that guest. And the 3 things that you need to rate them out of 5 stars are: did they follow your house rules? How clean did they leave the place? And how well did they communicate with you? And then you can click at the end, which they won't see, yes or no, whether or not you would recommend them. And you can leave a public note as feedback, and you can leave a private note to them as feedback if you want. So if they did do something that annoyed you, but it wasn't that big of a deal, but you do want them to be aware as a guest, it's not going to make them popular if they keep doing it, then in your public feedback you could say something like, polite and friendly, left the place neat and clean, welcome back anytime, would recommend as a guest. And then in the private feedback you could say, I don't know, whatever annoyed them, please be considerate when leaving early in the morning, or whatever you want them to know. I don't usually leave private feedback. If I do, I'll usually just say thanks for booking at our place, but that option is there if you want it. Your guests are also going to be rating you, so they're going to be rating how their stay was, what the space was like, and leaving public and private feedback for you as well. And neither of you gets to see each other's feedback until both of you have left feedback, or if one of you just chooses not to leave feedback at all, then the other person, their feedback will be read after 14 days it becomes available. Next question is, would you recommend having an Airbnb as a second income for those with young children? I think it depends on how young your children are, what your space is, how tied to routine they are. So if you have an Airbnb space in your home that does not have a separate entrance and is part of the family home and shares a bathroom, that's going to be very different than if you have a separate space for your guests with their own kitchen and bathroom and entrance. If you have a young baby who gets woken by noise, you're maybe not going to want guests in your home who may be making a noise and waking your baby, for example. Also think, how noisy are your kids? Are they going to be disturbing your guests? You can obviously put in your listing, this is a situation, it's a spare room in a family home, we're all sharing a bathroom and we have young children who wake up early in the morning. Up to you. And then your guests can book or not book. They're fully informed and they know the situation before booking. I wouldn't try to hide anything like that. Just be clear with your guests. If there are things like noisy children or pets or whatever, just be clear with your guests before they book, or you're going to get nasty feedback. But I wouldn't say it's not a good idea to do this if you have young children. Obviously you want to supervise your kids because you do have strangers coming into your home. So let's say you have a separate area, you have a sleep out, or like we do, like a separate guest house where your guests will stay. You can teach your children that they're welcome to talk to the guests, but they never ever to go inside the space with them. They can talk to them from the door, just don't go inside, or whatever your boundaries are. Just follow your gut and see how much interaction you're comfortable having between your children and your guests, and set your own boundaries. You could decide, I'm going to let my spare room out on Airbnb and we'll fit in around it and see how it goes. And you might have 3 guests and you might decide, I don't want to do this anymore. That's fine. Stop doing it. There's no costs involved besides setting up the room, which if it's a guest room in your home, you probably already have the stuff anyway. But there's no like startup costs or subscription fees or anything. You can do it once and decide you never want to do it again. So I think it's definitely worth a try. So yeah, just think about how much your guests might interrupt your children's schedule and think about how much your children might affect the guest's stay, and just be clear with your guests if that's the case and go from there. Next question is, what do you personally appreciate from your guests versus what is a potential pet peeve that may have stood out for you since you took on running a guest house? So the things that I appreciate is when they fill in my guest book. I know that's such a silly thing. We do have a guest book for them to write a little note, and because words of affirmation are my love language, I love coming out and seeing have they left me a note, and then seeing them say, we had a lovely stay, we enjoyed your garden, we loved the attention to detail. That's my favorite, when people say they love all the attention to detail, because I have put a lot of attention into the detail, so it makes me feel appreciated. So that's just a little silly thing that I do enjoy that my guests do, is when they leave me a note in the guest book. I also really appreciate it if they come and tell me that they have a problem, because then I can fix it. So we sometimes have a problem with our Wi-Fi. I don't know why, but sometimes guests are unable to connect, and all we have to do is turn the router off and on again, and then they're able to connect fine. But I have had guests who have left, and then in the private feedback they've said, we had trouble connecting to the Wi-Fi, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And I'm like, I wish they had just told me. They don't even have to come across to the house if they're feeling shy. They could just send me a message through Airbnb or through a text, and I would know, just reset the router for them. But if I don't know, then I can't fix it. So that's something I do appreciate, is if they come and tell me that they have a problem. Things that are pet peeves are if they strip the bed. I know this is so silly, and I know they do it to help, or they want to feel helpful, but I have my system and my routine, and I don't like it when they strip the bed before I come in. It's just a pet peeve. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. I just feel like they've seen me in my underwear. I mean, we have a clean bed with a clean mattress, we have a clean mattress protector over the mattress. There's nothing shameful that they're going to see if they strip off the sheets, but I just don't like it when they've done that. But I mean, some people might love it if they get strip the bed for them, so that's not anything they're doing wrong. More obvious pet peeves is if they leave dirty dishes in the kitchen. They're supposed to clean up after themselves, which also you set in your settings if you expect your guests to leave the place clean when they leave, or if you have a cleaning service. You can charge a cleaning fee, by the way, on top of your nightly rate. I've chosen not to do so because I feel that if your guests are paying a cleaning fee, they're going to think they don't need to clean up after themselves, and I'm going to come in and find the place more dirty than if I don't charge a cleaning fee. So that's why I choose not to. But that's a pet peeve. If I come in and they've left dirty dishes that I then have to clean, I don't mind clean dishes that are on the draining rack, they haven't been dried and put away. That's not such a big deal, but I don't expect to have to come and wash your dishes. And another pet peeve is if they don't read the instructions. So on the table, open, is a file, and it says, please read this to ensure a comfortable stay, and there's information there that they need. There's information, for example, like on a Tuesday night, they're going to hear what sounds like an air raid siren. It is the local firefighters testing it. They don't need to evacuate or do anything. If they hear it at any other time, it's calling the local firefighters to a job. Again, they don't need to do anything. Because if you're a guest traveling around, especially if you're from another country, and you hear the siren, you might panic and think, is it an earthquake? Is it a volcano? Like, what's going on? What do I need to do? So there's information like that for our guests. How to operate the hob, how to find the local shops, like which restaurants are nearby, how to work the TV, how to connect to the Wi-Fi, just anything they might need to ensure a comfortable stay. And it kind of annoys me when they don't take the time to read it. So I've had a guest come running across to the house to tell me they can't get the hob to work. It's just got a strange symbol there and it won't turn on. And I said, did you read that in the guest file? And they're like, no, we didn't. And it was a simple thing that the hob has a lock function, so if you've got little kids putting their fingers up, they're not going to be turning it on by mistake. And in the instructions with pictures shows them how to unlock it if it's locked, and they hadn't bothered to read the instructions. Not a big deal. I'm available. I'm quite happy to run across and show you. But what if I was out? Then they're going to be unhappy. They can't cook their dinner, and just because they couldn't read the instructions. So that's a pet peeve. And as a guest, when I go traveling, I always make sure to read the host's instructions. I was asked, what legal requirements, if any, have you had to investigate in order to run your guest house the way it is run? This is a great question. I would definitely recommend checking out what you need to do in your area, not just legally, but financially as well. Are there tax implications to running an Airbnb? You need to check if you need planning permission or zoning laws, whatever, do be sure to check that out for your area. Annually, has the monetary turnover made the extra work required on top of your other sources of daily work been worthwhile? Absolutely and completely. It is an excellent source of income. Like I said, it is usually less than an hour's worth of work in between guests, and it's well worth it. Have you noticed a significant seasonal pattern to how often the guest house is booked? Not really. I thought there would be more of a seasonal pattern, but there really hasn't been. I expected more bookings in school holidays. I expected more bookings in summer versus winter. There has been some of that, but not significantly. People seem to travel all times of the year. They come for different events that are hosted nearby, and they want a place to stay, or they just happen to be traveling through New Zealand, or they're on honeymoon, or they're traveling for work. Number of different reasons, and so there isn't a whole lot of seasonality, which kind of surprised me. But that's great in terms of income. It's more steady than I had expected it to be. I would like to know about your best and worst guest experiences. So I don't know if I would rank any as best or worst. We've had some very different guest experiences. Some of them, like I said, we meet them, we connect with them, we have them into our home for dinner, they feel like friends. We've had a couple that comes to stay to visit their daughter in the area, and they will come and stay for over a month at a time, and they've done that a couple of times. So that's always nice to see them return and to kind of catch up with them. I mean, best guest experiences could be the ones who come, let themselves in, have a happy stay, leave the place clean, and are quite content to go on their way. That's a great experience for both of us. We have some guests who come and they leave early in the morning and they're out all day, and they're obviously sightseeing or touring, and then they just come and sleep at night, and then they're out the whole day the next day enjoying the area. And then we've had guests who come and shut the curtains and they're just locked up in this room for like days on end. I don't know what they're doing, I don't need to know. We had 3 guys, like maybe in their early 20s, come and stay, these 3 men, and they had the curtains shut, and they did not emerge for like 3 or 4 days. I think they were gaming. I think there was some like heavy activity on the Wi-Fi. We have unlimited Wi-Fi, by the way, but I think they were gaming in here. I'm not sure. I didn't really want to know what they were getting up to. Worst guest experiences. We haven't really had any bad ones. I don't know if we're just lucky, but we really haven't had bad guest experiences. There was another question. Have you had any bad experiences? If so, were they few and far between? Very few and far between. We haven't really had bad experiences. Twice we've had damage in over 2 years. One time was when I came out to strip the sheets and I pulled back the duvet, and we have light grey sheets, and there were like orange bleach marks or dye marks or something on the sheets and on one of the pillowcases, and I had to replace that set. But all you do is you go and request it through Airbnb. You say, this is the item that was damaged, here's a picture of it, here's a link to the item online that I'm going to replace it with, this is how much it cost, and then the guest has to pay for it. So that happened once, and they paid, and they were like, oh sorry, like a bit sheepish, and it wasn't a problem at all. This weekend we came out to clean, and I pulled one of the pillowcases off. Now we have nice pillows in microfiber pillow protectors, and then I put the pillow slip on top of that, and I pulled off one of the pillow slips, and there was like a manky old stained pillow in our pillow slip. I don't know where our pillow went with the pillow protector. I don't know what our guest was thinking. Honestly, I don't understand it. I still don't understand it. Did they think that I wasn't going to notice? If you wanted to steal one of my pillows and get away with it, take it out of the pillow protector and put your manky pillow in there. It would take me a bit longer to discover it, and I wouldn't really know which guest switched it, because we don't wash the pillow protectors every single time. We obviously wash the pillowcases every single time, and so I immediately saw it. So we've put a request through Airbnb for a new pack of pillow protectors, a new pillow. They haven't responded yet, but Airbnb is pretty good at stepping in and kind of mediating. I feel like we had another incident. I can't remember what it was, but if I recall, oh no, that was as a guest. It was as a guest. Airbnb is pretty good. They will step in if the other person isn't responding favorably. Airbnb can step in and say, look, your guest isn't going to refund you, or your host isn't going to refund you. We will refund you up to a certain amount. So yeah, that happened to us as a guest. Airbnb refunded us for a problem that we had with a host who was not willing to refund us. But I guess it would work the same way if you're requesting money from a guest. I guess time will tell if this guest will refund us for the pillow they stole. I mean, I don't get it. I just don't get it. But that wasn't pleasant, and that's kind of annoying when a guest will do something like that. The guests didn't respond to my reimbursement request for a week, so I asked Airbnb to step in. Within a day, Airbnb had reimbursed me for the damage. I don't know what repercussions there will be for the guests besides our feedback. I don't know. So as a guest, if you ever break or damage something, please just tell your host. If you break a glass, for example, tell your host, I've broken one of these glasses by mistake. It's not a big deal, but then your host knows I need to replace that glass before our next set of guests come. I mean, the sheets, they didn't need to tell me they'd damaged the sheets. I saw that immediately. But yeah, the pillow thing, I still don't understand. But really, that's like 2 incidents in over 2 years, and they're not that big of a deal anyway. So I don't know if we're just lucky or if that's normal as an Airbnb host. But yeah, that's been our experience. I was asked, does it interfere with your privacy at all? Not really. We have a privacy screen up on the deck, and the guests can see through into our house. But you know, if I'm working out in the morning and I know our guests might be coming and going, I just have the curtains closed during that time. Grant's a lot more shy about it than I am, and he'll be more likely to have the curtains closed if the guests are out on their deck, for example, but I don't think it's a big deal. I don't really feel like it infringes on my privacy. I expected it to feel more as if it did than it has done. I do have a veggie garden just over there outside the window, so the guest house looks out over the veggie garden, and that can sometimes be tricky if I'm wanting to go and work in my garden, but I don't want to feel like I'm being watched by the guests, and I don't want them to feel like I'm invading their privacy, so I'll wait till they go out and then I'll quickly go out and do some work there, or I'll wait until we're between guests. But that we're also remedying. I'm moving my raised beds further over, and we're putting up a hedge between the two so I can go out there and work in that space, and we can kind of not be interfering with each other. Our house is over there, and my greenhouse is just over there, and sometimes obviously I have to walk in front of the guest house, which has like glass sliding doors over there. And I mean, that's not a big deal. They know we live here, they know we use this space, so I will just kind of not look at the guest house. I don't want them to feel like I'm looking in. I'll just walk past, I'll go to the greenhouse, get whatever I need, walk out. It's not a big deal. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are a guest hiring an Airbnb space, you know that that's a family space. Like I've said in our listing, we're just in the house nearby, so they know that this is a family property and they can expect that. So I don't think it's a big deal. We don't really get in each other's way. I was asked, what would bring a tourist to your neck of the woods? What are the attractions in your area? So we're about half an hour from the mountain, and there's different hikes there, and there's Dawson Falls. If you go a bit further around the mountain, there's skiing in the winter. We have a lot of beaches near us. We're kind of near Surf Highway, so there's surfing spots and obviously just beaches to walk on and enjoy nature. What else? Taranaki was in the Lonely Planet guide to like best places to live. I think it was ranked as number 2 in the world, so that was obviously a draw for tourists. They like to explore the area, and we seem to be quite well situated for people kind of passing up through the country from Wellington or down from Auckland. It seems to be a good stopping point for people, or even like cutting across to Taupo. So there's things in the area, but there's also things within fairly easy reach of our area. I was asked, have your guests ever helped themselves to your garden? So I do grow food in our garden, and I don't think anyone's ever stolen anything, but I usually tell our guests, if we have a lot of things growing, to just help themselves. I'll say, you know, there's tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchini, just help yourselves if you want any. And some guests take me up on it and some don't, but I just invite them to help themselves if they want. Do you allow pets? No, we don't. We have been asked a couple of times if people can bring a dog and it's well behaved and all that jazz, and we've had to say to them that we can't allow pets because we don't know if future guests are going to be allergic and how allergic they are. I know if Grant goes into a space, no matter how thoroughly cleaned, if he goes into a space that's had cats, he will be like dying of an allergic reaction. So we just can't do that to future guests. But we have said to them, if you want to bring your dog, you're welcome to have the dog stay in the garage or in the greenhouse. It's a sheltered space and you can enjoy the dog in our gardens, but they just can't go into the guest house. And we've never actually had anyone take us up on that. It's the same with smoking. We've had guests ask if they're allowed to smoke on the deck, and we're like, sure, so long as the door to the guest house is closed and you're outside, smoke away, because that's not going to affect our actual space. Any plans to build a second guest house on your property? So if you don't know, we have half an acre. We have a lot of space around our house, a lot of garden or yard space, and we did actually consider putting in another unit, but we decided not to because this unit isn't 100% booked. If this unit was 100% booked every month, we would know there was more of a need than there is. But since this is booking 60% of the time, yes, the other unit may have some overlapping dates, but we just didn't feel like there was enough of a demand to have a second unit in the same place. Do you get a discount if you rent someone else's Airbnb? No, we don't get a discount. We're just standard guests. However, as a superhost, we get a bonus, I think, every quarter. If you maintain your superhost status for like so many months in a row, then Airbnb will send us I think it's $100 or $100 US dollar bonus, which is maybe about 150 New Zealand dollars, which is kind of a night somewhere else. So we can use that against another Airbnb stay. But other than that, we don't get any discounts if we go and rent an Airbnb as a guest. Do most of your guests have any awareness of your YouTube channel / social media presence? I don't think so, although there have been some who have been aware of it. I remember one couple arrived, it was a South African couple, and I went out to greet them and I said hello, and I'll kind of make chit chat. I might ask them what they're doing in the area, and like I said, they were a South African couple, and they said, oh, we're touring around, we're just having a look, we're considering immigrating. So as we were chatting, I kind of said, well, I've got some videos that might be helpful to you, because I make those videos on my channel about moving to New Zealand. And that straight away she said, yeah, we watch your videos. And I like went, oh, okay. And it was super awkward, and then we just didn't interact any more than that. It was so awkward. It wasn't like, oh, we watch your videos, they've been helpful, or we knew this was your place when we booked, or we were surprised to see this was your place. It was just, yeah, we watch your videos. Yeah, it was awkward. Have you had some really bad messes to clean up? If so, gag-worthy or just unpleasant? I haven't had any awful messes. It's kind of annoying when people eat in bed and there's food stains on the duvet, but we have white duvet covers and I can bleach them, so that's usually not a big deal. I mean, I can think of one incident where there was a very obvious wet spot in the bed on the sheets, but I just try not to think about those kind of things. Everything's washable. You can clean with gloves on if you completely skeeved out by that kind of thing. I will say, and I hope nobody takes this as being racist, it's not, it's just an observation. I will say that Asian people tend to lose a lot of hair. There's a lot of hair when Asian people have been staying here, more so usually than when non-Asian people have been staying, and I just thought that was interesting. It was something different that I've noticed. That's something that I'm super picky about when I'm cleaning. I don't want any hairs left behind, because as a guest, if you see even a stain on a clean duvet, if you can tell it's clearly clean, it's just a mark that didn't come out, which, I mean, like I said, I bleach out marks. But as a guest, that wouldn't bother me as much as seeing other people's hair would bother me. To me, it's just kind of gross. So I'm like super picky about making sure there's no hair in the space when I've cleaned it. I was asked, do you intend to continue it indefinitely, or do you think eventually one of the boys will live there? At this stage, we're happy to do it indefinitely. It's working really well, it's going smoothly, and we've no plans to stop it. Eventually, if the boys need a place to stay, we'll kind of reevaluate what our situation is. We'll see in the future, but for now, we are enjoying it as a business. Next question, has anyone left you an obviously undeserved crappy review? Thank you for saying it was obviously undeserved. I do think that we work hard to earn our good reviews, and we have 185 reviews and they are all positive. One of them, however, simply said, check where she is before you book. Obviously as a note to future guests, which to me is common sense. I did have someone, I couldn't actually find it. I was kind of scrolling through my feedback because I wanted to like quote the exact feedback and I couldn't find it. But somebody said something like, oh, she's 2 hours from New Plymouth in the middle of nowhere, like a bit of a rant about our situation or like location. And I was like, first of all, we're not 2 hours from New Plymouth, like how slowly do you drive? We're more like an hour. And second of all, as a guest, it's your responsibility to check where the Airbnb is when you book it. It's not my fault if I'm further away from something than you thought I was going to be. You should have checked on the map where we're located. Like, I just thought that was strange. But other than that, we've had no bad reviews. I was asked, did you buy your current house with that in mind? And I think I answered this in the beginning. No, we didn't. We didn't have any idea that we'd be doing Airbnb when we bought this house. It's just worked out well. Do you have any funny stories about your experiences? The only one I could think of is 2 guys turned up for their booking. It was like a 2-night booking, I think. And they came across to the house and they're like, we've got a problem. We are two work colleagues traveling on a work trip, and our boss has booked this space. And like, it's not a space where two people who work together and aren't friends would want to live. Like, it's one room for sleeping and living. Like I said, there's a bed there and there's a sofa bed there. The kitchen bathroom situation is kind of strange, and the bathroom is tiny, and there's a sliding door between here and the kitchen, and then there's two little swinging doors into the bathroom, but it's not like super private, and you just wouldn't want to share this kind of a space with a work colleague. So we had to like recommend somewhere else for them to stay, and they had to try and get hold of their boss and make a different booking somewhere, and it was a bit of a palaver. But yeah, I don't know what that boss was thinking when they booked the space. I really don't. I was asked, what have you done to grow the business? We haven't done anything. Like I said earlier, Airbnb handles all of the marketing. If you're available, people will find you, and we haven't had to do anything, which has been great. We were actually listed on a different website called Book a Batch, which operates through the home away system, but that actually became more hassle than it was worth. So on Book a Batch, I had it set that we had to approve each and every booking, because I didn't want somebody to book on Airbnb and book on Book a Batch at the same time and have a conflicting reservation. So that's how I had it set. But it was just a hassle. Like, if someone booked on Airbnb, I would have to go across there and block it off on the calendar, and there was issues with payments. There was issues with somebody asking for a booking, and I got the notification on my phone, but when I went into the dashboard to approve their booking, I literally couldn't find it anywhere. It was like it didn't exist, and we just thought it wasn't worth it. We only had like maybe 5% of our bookings, if that, which came through Book a Batch, so we just delisted it there. My battery light's flashing, I better hurry up. The last question is, have you ever thought about renting out the guest house to a long-term tenant? It would be a lot less work. I ask because we have a granny flat on our house which we rent out long-term. I thought about Airbnb but decided against it. We prefer having a regular income from it and almost no work. If we chose to rent this place out to a long-term tenant, we would have no problem keeping it occupied, because there are no rentals in our area. There is such a lack of rentals that we just wouldn't have to worry about it. We'd always have a tenant. But we don't want to do so for a couple of reasons. First of all being, I don't want somebody here all of the time, because we do sometimes use this space for friends or family, and we like having this space available for that. And secondly, we make way more money doing it through Airbnb than we would with a long-term tenant. So if we are about 60% booked, even if we're slightly less than that, we are still able to earn more than double what we would be able to earn if we had a long-term tenant here. So it's kind of a no-brainer for us. Those are all of the questions that I was given. I hope you found this video interesting. I feel like I've done a lot of rambling, but if you are considering hosting on Airbnb, hopefully this cleared some things up for you and you kind of know what to expect. If you have any more questions, leave them down below and I can do a follow-up video. As I mentioned before, I will link down below to the videos showing our space. I'm not going to link to the actual listing just for privacy reasons. If you are traveling in our area and looking for a place, it will come up naturally in your search, but I just don't feel comfortable leaving the link down below. I will, however, leave a referral link down below. If you want to become an Airbnb host, I would appreciate it so much if you use that link, because I will get a small referral fee. I don't think it makes any difference to you as a host. You're not being charged any extra or anything, but it would make a big difference to me and I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.